The American Civil War, beginning in 1861, was a result of conflicting opinions on the concept of slavery between the northern United States and the southern United States. The South, angered and economically threatened by the North's opposition to slavery, seceded from the nation in the attempt to maintain slavery. Not long after, the tension between both opposing forces, the North known as the Union and the South known as the Confederacy, reached a breaking point, and the first battles of the war broke out. The First Battle of Bull Run, fought on July 21, 1861, was the first major battle of the Civil War. The Confederate Army defeated the Union Army, proving that the Confederacy had better generals. This victory boosted Confederate morale and showed the war would not be a quick and easy victory for the Union, like many thought. Although the Union lost, this battle shows that the Confederacy lacked disciplined soldiers who could have pursued the Union Army and caused greater damage. Also, thanks to the North's industrial economy, the Union had no problem replacing the lost rifles and cannons. This battle proved to be a reality check for the North, and with 80,000 reinforcements, the Union was ready for the next battle. The Second Battle of Bull Run, fought between August 28th and August 30th, 1862, was fought on the same ground as the First Battle of Bull Run. Although General Pope of the Union Army had more men than Robert E. Lee, the Union lost and was forced to retreat. The South hoped to enter Maryland or Washington, D.C., but did not pursue the Union Army due to limited supplies. The Union asked for volunteer nurses to assist in helping the wounded, and they were required to bring a bottle of brandy with them, probably to use as a painkiller. After the Battle of Yorktown, Union General George McClellan pursued the retreating Confederate Army. His main goal was to capture the Confederate capital, Richmond, Virginia, which was one of the parts of the Anaconda Plan. The Union was initially successful, thanks partly to the aid of gunboats. However, when General Lee replaced General Johnston, the tide turned in the favor of the Confederacy. Lee pushed back the Union Army, and this campaign ended when McClellan used his troops to reinforce the Union at the Second Battle of Bull Run.
The Battle of Antietam was fought at Antietam Creek between the armies of the Union and the Confederacy. Both armies held riverbanks opposite to each other and had artillery overlooking the creek. The Union Army was able to utilize their artillery in order to cover their infantry who were crossing the Antietam and advancing upon the enemy. The Confederates, however, despite having a more strategic position, were not able to utilize their artillery and stop the Union advance. In the end, about 160,000 men had fought for 12 hours, and the Union emerged victorious. The Confederacy total losses estimated about at 30,000 soldiers. The Union, on the other hand, had regiments left over who were not even needed in the battle. The Battle of Fredericksburg occurred when the Confederacy approached the town of Fredericksburg, occupied by the Union at this time. The Union General Burnside planned to pierce the enemy position and force his way through the Confederate line by marching across a flat plateau in order to reach the Confederate batteries. Their force was devastated the moment they began their approach. One division reported going from 6,000 troops to 1,500 after the assault. In fact, the Union artillery batteries began firing into their own troops and had to cease fire. The Union was able to capture some Confederate prisoners, but eventually was forced to retreat. The siege of Vicksburg occurred when General Grant, leading the Union Army, surrounded the town of Vicksburg, which was reported to be holding between 25,000 to 30,000 Confederate troops. The Union Army was able to capture Confederate batteries located on the hills surrounding the town. The army was reported to stretch completely around the doomed city, each wing resting on the river. The Confederates offered to surrender the town if General Grant would allow them to leave. One of the reasons for this offering was probably because Vicksburg was full of both women and children who had come in from the countryside for safety from the opposing force. General Grant, however, refused the offer of surrender and kept the town of Vicksburg under siege.
Throughout the Battle of Shiloh, tensions ran high on both sides of the battlefield, with a constant barrage of bullets and artillery being fired throughout the first day. Although soldiers in the Confederate lines witnessed death of comrades all around them, their generals urged troops to push forward. As the Union Army advanced onto the Confederate ranks, Confederate soldiers had no option but to retreat. In order to evade the bullets and cannons being fired at Confederate troops, soldiers would hide behind tree stumps to take cover. Along the Confederate lines, soldiers witnessed death of allies being blasted with cannonballs and others being shot by Union troops all around them. There were points on the battlefield where soldiers were unable to walk in a line without stumbling into a dead body. The Battle of Shiloh truly was one of the bloodiest battles of its time, alongside Sherman's March to the Sea. Despite the Confederacy already being economically destroyed due to the Union's oceanic border, General Sherman decided to put the nail in the coffin. During the Union's march into Savannah, the terrain they had traveled on became more and more vigorous, with marshes and trees coming into their path. Once the Union had reached Port Royal and they found reinforcements from Union ships awaiting them there, the Union Army sought to dismantle all of the additional southern forts and strongholds after they had taken over Savannah. They looted all of the cities they had captured in order to obtain more ammo and other valuables. When the Union had arrived in Savannah, they witnessed many Confederate troops and artillery stationed in the city, but they overcame the opposition with ease. With the Confederacy almost completely destroyed, the time for the Civil War to end draws near. At the Appomattox Courthouse, the final decision was made to end the war. When the decision was finally made, men of both armies embraced one another, hollering in joy that the last person had died due to the fighting. After Lee's surrender, troops from both the Union Army and the Confederate Army were seen walking home together as friends. In the South, there were mixed feelings about the surrender. Some people were brought to tears of joy, while others were enraged by the resulting surrender. With white flags of surrenderance rising everywhere in the South, it seemed as if the Civil War was finally coming to an end, but its effects are still felt even today.